Hi guys, today we are going to be working on Unit 8B, Lesson 8G, I, and J, scatter plots and lines of best fit. For today we have three objectives. I can graph a scatter plot in a coordinate plane and describe and analyze its correlation. I can create a line of best fit using technology, and I can draw conclusions about data represented in a scatter plot using the line of best fit. Now, you may be thinking to yourself right now, okay, I haven't heard of many of those terms. But that's okay. That's why we have this key term section. Our first key term is scatter plot. This is what a graph of plotted points that show the relationship between two sets of data would look like. Okay, so it's referred to as a scatter plot. Two sets of data and we show that relationship. Correlation is how two variables are related. And we talk about correlation in a couple different ways. The first thing we talk about is a positive correlation. If we had two sets of data, our positive correlation would be when the values increase together. When our values increase together. So if X is increasing, Y is increasing. They will increase at the same time. A negative correlation is when one value decreases as the other increases. So for example, if X was increasing, Y would have to be decreasing. Or if Y was increasing, X would have to be decreasing in order to make sure we had that negative correlation. Okay, so what we want to take a look at here is we also have to come up with a line of best fit. Now this is a line on a graph that shows the general direction that a group of points seems to be heading. Okay, so let's take a look at our first couple examples. Before we jump into examples with actual data, we just want to describe the correlation shown by each of these scatter plots. So down here, A, B, and C, we have three scatter plots. We need to decide, does it have a positive correlation, a negative correlation, or no correlation at all? So if we look at example A, if you were to look at this data, now remember it's a scatter plot, so it's not going to be a perfectly straight line. But we can get a general idea of what the data is doing, where it's headed. So if we look here and we start all the way at the left, we always want to start at the left when we're looking at these, just like when we were talking about graphing line. We have our Y values over here are very positive. As we go downward, my Y values are decreasing. However, when we go from left to right, my X values are actually increasing. If it helps you, what you could do is draw in a general line for this data. And when you do that, you should notice that if this were my line, it would have a negative slope. These also have a negative correlation based on the scatter plot and based on our definition of a negative correlation. If we look at this example, as X is increasing, my Y values are getting smaller. They are decreasing. If we look at example B, now we have our second scatter plot. And if you look, as my X values are getting bigger, my Y values are also getting bigger. If you were to draw in a line there to kind of get an idea, you would notice you have a positive slope. X and Y are increasing together. If X and Y are both increasing at the same time, this is what we call a positive correlation, Now, if you guys go ahead and take a look at part C, it kind of seems like these lines here, this scatter plot is all over the place. If we were to try and draw on a line like we did in A and B, there isn't really one where you could see, okay, the data is getting close to that line. In this case, when you have a scatter plot where there doesn't seem to be any trend between X and Y, this is what we call having no correlation. Okay, so it's telling you the variables are not really related in any special way. Okay, skip those U-tries. You'll worry about those in class. And go ahead and flip to the next page. Now, if you look here, what I need you guys to do is I need you to take out your calculators right now. We are going to use our graphing calculator to actually graph these scatter plots and find the line of best fit and predict future values. First, I'm just going to run through the directions for you. You do not need to type on your calculators right now. Just listen. First, you will start by pressing your Y equals button on your calculator. You always want to make sure you clear out any equations you may have in there. The second thing is we will press second y equals, and you have to make sure you turn your scatter plots on, okay? Now, the main thing is when we go back to not using scatter plots, you do need to turn them off again, and we'll remind you guys about that. Your third step, we'll press stat, and we're going to enter in our data into two columns. These are called L1 and L2, where L1 will be our x values and L2 will be our y values. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and press graph, and in order to see all of our data, we'll have to use this zoom 9 button. From there, if we have a linear relationship, we can calculate the line of best fit, okay, and that's what we keep talking about here. What you will do is you'll press stat, and then we'll have to go ahead and calculate and choose option 4, and that will give us our line in our favorite slope-intercept form. Now, if you want to see how it fits the data, we'll actually graph that line by pressing y equals. And then lastly, to clear a list before entering a new set, you will have to go through and press stat, arrow up to L1, and then you'll have to press clear and hit enter. Main thing here is we will not press delete. Okay, and I know right now you guys are probably thinking, all right, that sounded like a lot of jibber jabber. So let's go ahead and take a look at an actual example and see how this relates. Looking at example 2, we need to do a couple things. We want to find the line of best fit for each of the following scatter plots. We want to make sure we round to the nearest hundredth when necessary. Okay, so go ahead and circle that so we know when we need to go through and round. The table below gives the number of people, Y, who attend each of the first 7 football games, X, of the season. Find the line of best fit for the data. So what we want to take a look at is they spelled this out for us in our word problem. It says Y is the number of people. So I'm going to go ahead and just write this off to the side so I keep that in mind. Y is my number of people. And if you look, X is each of the first 7 football games. So X is actually our number of games. Okay, so we're talking number of games and number of people. It's always important to identify X and Y. Now, in order to calculate the line of best fit, we need to go ahead and pull up our calculators. Okay, so I'm going to walk you guys through this one step at a time. First thing I want you guys to do is go ahead and press Y equals. I have no equations in mind, but if you do, please press clear to enter these away so we do not have equations in there. Okay, next thing, I need you guys to press your second button and then press Y equals. If you notice, you will come up with a list where it says stat plots. I want you guys to press the down arrow all the way to where you see plots on. If you look, plots on is number 5 on your calculator. Once you're at that number 5, go ahead and hit enter, and then hit enter one more time. If you look on your screen, you should have it say done. That tells you your plots are turned on, so we can go ahead and enter in our data. Since those are on, we are going to press the stat button. We want to edit a list, so we're going to go ahead and just hit enter. And now you should see L1, L2, L3, and so on. We only have an X and a Y value, so we're only going to worry about L1 and L2. Remember, in L1, we always want to go through and enter our X values. Our Y values get entered in L2. Okay, so for L1, all we're going to do is enter in 1 through 7. To enter this data, we'll just hit it one at a time. So we'll press 1, hit enter. 2, enter. 3, enter. 4, enter. 5, enter. 6, enter. And lastly, 7, enter. Okay, so we just entered all of our X values, 1 through 7. Now we have to go ahead and enter in list 2. So we are going to go ahead and arrow to the right, and that should highlight underneath list 2 for you. Now we need to enter in our Y values. My first one that matches up with 1 is 722. Go ahead and hit enter. My next one is 763. Go ahead and hit enter. My next one is 772. Hit enter. My next one is 826. Hit enter. My next one is 815. Hit enter. And my next one is 857. hit enter. And then my last one is 897, and go ahead and hit enter. Okay, so we entered in all that data. Once we enter in that data, if we want to see what our scatter plot looks like, we go ahead and hit graph. When you hit graph, you guys are probably thinking, what the heck, we entered in all that data and nothing's on there? Well, in order to see it, we have to hit the zoom button, and then we have to press number 9. That's going to zoom fit it for us. So that's going to pull us to the screen. And if you look, you should be thinking, hey, that looks like the 3 examples on the first page. What you should be thinking also is that looks like it has a positive correlation. From here, since we know we have some type of correlation going on, we want to find the equation for the line of best fit. Now, in order to do that, what we have to do is we have to press stat again. We need to arrow over to the right to be under calc. And once we arrow to the right, we want to choose option 4 where it says linear regression, AX plus B. So choose option 4. And then we're going to go ahead and hit enter. When we hit enter, you should notice we have y equals AX plus B. Now your calculator uses AX plus B, but we know really we normally say MX plus B for slope and our y-intercept. That's what it has just given to us. So when it comes to writing your equation for the line of best fit, we just want to make sure we round that y-intercept to the nearest hundredth, like our directions told us. So for my line of best fit, I have y equals 27x plus 699.43. The reason it's 0.43 is because we had 0.428. Don't forget to round to the nearest hundredth, 2 places after the decimal. Now, when you go ahead and look, if you want to see what your graph with this line would actually look like, we hit y equals, and we type in our equation. So we have 27x plus 699.43. And then we can go ahead and hit graph. And if you look, that's pretty cool. It draws in that line for us. That's the line that we just found. After we do all of this, what we can do is go ahead and look at our second part of our question. We can actually use our equation to predict the number of values that will attend the 10th football game. What it's telling us is we are using the 10th football game. Well, remember, X was our number of games. So I'm going to write that down again just so we don't forget. X equals my number of games. So to predict how many people Y are going to attend this game, I just have to plug in 10 for X. So we're going to go ahead and say we want to know how many people at the 10th game. So I'll have my Y equals 27 times X is now 10 plus 699.43. Now you guys know this. This is just evaluating. We've done this a million times. So we'll have 270 plus 699.43. And when we go ahead and add these together, we end up with 969.43. Make sure we answer the question though. It says, use this equation to predict the number of people. Well, since we can't have 4/3 of a person and we're under 5, we're going to round down and we're going to go ahead and say about 969 people will attend the 10th football game. So make sure you guys have all of this written down. Okay, you need to make sure we actually answer the question. So kind of cool, right? We're graphing our own data, real life example, and we're finding the equation for the line of best fit. Now let's go ahead and try another one. So let's look at our next example. Now we're talking about the table giving us the average class score Y on each chapter test for the first 6 chapters of the textbook. Approximate the line of best fit for the data. So again, I want you guys to label, all right, what does X mean? Well, X is the first 6 chapters. So X actually is just our chapter number in this case. And Y is the average class score on each of the chapter tests. So Y is our score. Just keep that in mind so we know what we're talking about when it comes to using our predictions. All right, so go ahead, pull up our calculator. Now, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and we want to enter in a new set of data. First thing I want you guys to do is press Y equals and go ahead and press clear because we want to clear out our old line of best fit. What you should notice is all 3 plots are highlighted. So our plots are already on. So we can actually go right to entering in data. What you guys need to do is press Stat, press Enter again for Edit, because this is how we enter our lists. Now, what you guys should notice is you're thinking, oh wait, all of our old data's in there. Like, what are we going to do? Now, this is where you need to be careful. This is step 7 from your directions. In order to clear out your list, you need to arrow up. So if you look, my L2 is highlighted. You need to hit clear, and then you hit enter, and it will clear that whole list for you. If you press delete, it will get rid of that entire list, and L2 will not be an option for you. Do not press delete. Now we need to arrow to the right, and then arrow up again, and we need to do the same thing to clear out L1. So we press clear, and we press enter. Now if you look, we're good to go. So we're going to enter in our new data. So we'll hit 1, enter, 2, enter, 3, enter, 4, enter, 5, enter, 6, enter. And then we arrow over to enter in L2. Remember, that's our Y values. So we have 84. Enter. My next one's 83. Enter. My next one's 86. Enter 88. And it's very important we go in order here. Enter 87. Enter and 90. Enter. Once we have this, we can see what our scatter plot looks like. So we can go ahead and press Graph. And if you notice, we want to go ahead and make sure we hit Zoom 9 again. And there's our scatter plot, okay? So if your graph doesn't show up, just always make sure you hit that Zoom 9. It'll bring it right to that window for you. Now that we have our data, we know we can see right away that this one has a positive correlation. That's what you should be thinking to yourself. So now what we want to do is go ahead and find our line of best fit, okay? So we're going to go ahead, we're going to press Stat. And remember, to find that line, we have to arrow over to Calc, and it's number 4 that we pick. Remember, from here, we're going to hit Enter, and then it brings us to our equation. So again, we're in slope-intercept form, so y equals ax plus b. So a in this case and b, we have to round both of them to the nearest hundredth. When we go and we round these to the nearest hundredth, what we end up with is y equals 1.26x plus 81.93. And if you look back at our calculations, we had to round to the nearest hundredth. So we had a 7. That's why we bumped it up to 0.26. And we had a 3, so that's why we left it as 81.93. Again, if we want to see what this looks like on our scatter plot, we just enter in our equation to y equals. So we have 1.26x plus 81.93. And we go ahead and hit Graph. And there's our line of best fit that you guys just calculated. Pretty neat. Now, for our next step, what we want to do is we want to make sure we use this equation to predict the score for the 9th test that the class will take. So again, we are looking for the prediction of the 9th test. So what that's telling me is my test number, remember that's x. X equals my chapter number or my test number. Okay, we want to predict the score. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to substitute in x equals 9 into our equation. So we have y equals 1.26 times x, which since it's the 9th test, we plug in 9, plus 81.93. Now it's just a matter of going through and simplifying. So we have y equals, and when we get this, we have 11.34. That's 1.26 times 9, plus 81.93. And when we simplify it one more time, we get y equals 93.27. Now, it's saying we're trying to predict the test score for the 9th test, the class average. Now, even though here we got 93.27, and that's a possible score on the test, we still, if you look at our data, we always use whole numbers. So since it's 0.27, again, we're going to round down. So we can say the class will average about, so remember it's just a prediction, it's not completely accurate, 93%, because we round down since it was 0.27. Alright, so you guys are going to go ahead, skip the next 2. We're going to save those for class tomorrow. Just make sure you fill out, as always, after watching this video, what can you do, what do you still not know how to do, and what are you going to do to help yourself. Make sure, too, that you bring your graphing calculator to class tomorrow. You cannot do these problems without it. Make your life easier. Have a great day. See you guys tomorrow.